Hello, and welcome to Empower Voices, where we cultivate inner strength, resilience, holistic well being, guided by gentleness, self control, and unwavering faith. My name is Tandrika, and today I have with me Victoria and Twanda. We are Empower Voices, and today we want to take a step further in helping our audience engage in some of the season of what we have talked about thus far. Mm-hmm. A lot of the things that we've talked about, this episode specifically, this season specifically, was based off of the power of pause and reclaiming a rhythm while still growing in the midst of chaos and calamity. And then we went about the next episode and we talked about basic holistic well-being. Mm-hmm. We also talked about gentleness and faith. Mm-hmm. And we talked about the ripple effect of how one voice can change many. And today, we just want to reflect on all of those episodes and what it has done for us since that moment in time, initially. So I want to open up with a question. And the first question that I'd like to open up with is, how has sharing the story, your story of resilience, help you connect with others in the community? And I want you all to, for those of you who are listening, think about that question and write it down. And if you haven't ever thought about how your story of resilience has helped others, or if you've never even shared your story, think about sharing your story and be intentional of seeing the effects of it. So today I'd like to start off by asking, how has your story shaped and how has the resilience of your story helped others, help you connect in the community?
Well, thank you guys for having me here. I really enjoy being a part of this movement of Empowered Voices because I think, when we first started, it kind of looked a little different for me and going into it. And I really didn't understand what community really meant in as far as, being vulnerable and being, able to talk to many people or reach the people that we've already reached. So I'm really thankful and grateful for that journey because we've really set the sound of what that looks like for the community. And this new version of ourselves here, podcast and everything like that, is also now setting that standard and the sound of what we are and what we are able to do for the community. So I want to start by saying that it's in the gratefulness of just understanding that our voices don't have to be silenced when we're in the midst of calamity, when we're in the midst of going through life seasons and everything like that. We don't have to be silenced because what we fail to realize is that we have a commonality with one another. And that commonality is what tends to be stripped from us when we go into dealing with things ourselves or when we go into having to toggle between life and life's experiences. So to answer the question, how does my story is very different from a lot of people, but then again, it isn't, right? So like people don't have to sit and mirror exactly what I went through, but even a fraction of my story could have helped someone, look at things differently or help them, navigate their challenges and things like that, and look at it in a different way and just change perspective. And that's how you grow.
Mm.
When you stay so shackled with your own issues, we the downside to that, yes, maybe you're not bleeding on other people, because that's what we think, right? We don't want to bleed on others because there's so much going on in our life. But when we sit and resonate with one another and say, you know what, I need to let this out, whether it be through therapy or whatever, but I need to let this out in a healthy way, and we're able to communicate, we find that we have more in common with one another than we do, than what actually is different about each other. I mean, I know Kamala Harris says it all the time, we share more in common with one another than what separates us. And that is so true, because, while my story is not identical to anyone else's story, it has its unique parts of it. It also that voice can also, heal people in spaces that they probably never thought that people were going through. They really think there's a lot of people out there that really thinking that they're the only one.
Yeah.
And that is where we fall as a community, is because you're not the only one. You're not the only one struggling financially. You're not the only one going through a bad breakup, or you're not the only one going through a nasty divorce. You're not the only one. While your story is unique to you, your feelings, all of that belongs to you. I think that when we share, we give ourselves the opportunity to not be so burdened by what we're actually facing, and we're able to reshape, refocus, and gain better insight so that we can grow as individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes us, and also it makes us not be so bitter
Right.
and angry. Sometimes we become bitter and angry when we all have different stories for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And for the reason that we have is because we're all different. Mm-hmm. Your story is different from mine because you've been through things that I haven't been through, and I've been through things that you haven't been through. It means that we are not being anxious, we're being anchored. Mm-hmm. What we're telling the stories, that's what makes us resilient. Mm-hmm. When we tell our stories, it makes us resilient. We're not being anxious about it. And then we show that, we're not feared. We have to learn how to stay focused on what we're doing, and how we're doing it, what we're saying, because sometimes we are not staying focused, and we're saying things that we shouldn't say to other people, and not realizing that it's hurtful to them, and you think it's okay. That's what makes us resilient. Again, is because, we have to learn to talk to one another, gravitate. Mm-hmm. It's a gravitating thing. It's like, just like now, we're gravitating to people in general. Mm-hmm. Because of what we're doing, we're empowering you. Mm-hmm. And when we're empowering you, we're also empowering ourselves by the stories we're telling. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great response, a great reactive to other people, just in general.
Mm-hmm. I want to just kind of elaborate on what both of you have brought attention to. And first of all, I just wanted to say, in the Bible, it says to be fruitful and multiply. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we think that fruitfulness is basically just in family alone. Mm. But fruitfulness means in all aspects of your life.
Right.
And so if we remain isolated in the way that we tend to want to hide when things are not going right in our lives, we can never be healed in those areas by helping someone, which helps us to heal. When we stop thinking about what our problems are and help someone else, mm-hmm. as we're helping those other people, that actually helps us to heal, because we oftentimes will find the answer to our own problem in the solutions that we have provided for others. And so many times before this episode, before this community, before Empowered Voices was birthed, the questions that I would ask myself would sometimes be, why do I have to? But now the question that I ask myself is, what is it that I can learn from this? Or what am I missing? Because a lot of times when the questions that we ask ourselves reflect on what we feel in the inside. And so when we ask ourselves, and when we change that narrative, we change the story of being the victim, then we can then learn how to be victorious in everything that we do. Many times you don't even know that your story is helping someone. Something so minute that you think is minute. I'm thinking right now of 2 times that I thought what I was saying to someone was so minute, and the next time I saw them, they told me, thank you, because you changed my life with the conversation we had the last time. And that, to me, is resilience. Because when you continuously speak life into others, or speak truth into others, regardless of what you're going through, that is resilience in helping community.
I agree.
And secondly, you had mentioned that so many times everyone thinks that they're the only ones. They're the only one that is going through what they're going through at that moment. And I cannot count on my hands and toes, feet, how many times I felt that and had to come back to my own reality to realize that there's 8 billion people. Okay, y'all. 8 billion people in this world. You're going to tell me I am the only one out of 8 billion people that feel like the bills are due and I don't have enough money to pay them? I need gas, but I don't have any money to put gas in my luxury car. You mean to tell me I'm the only one? No, you're not alone.
Right.
So, and that's what we want you to understand here at Empower Voices. You are not alone, and your voice matters. And finding that inner strength to truly pull from is the key.
Yeah.
And listening to podcasts like these and building a community is what really helps to find that inner strength.
Yeah.
And so that kind of ties us straight into the second part, the second episode that we had in holistic well-being, right? And the question that we want to ask is, what does holistic well-being mean to you actually? And how do you nurture it in your daily life on a daily basis?
Well, holistic well-being. When we first met, I didn't even know what that. Let's just be for real. You came to me and told me, you know, we're gonna treat this holistically, and I couldn't tell you what that meant, right? I was just like, wait, what? And to me, what I've learned over the years of just being in this space is learning that, our bodies are uniquely and wonderfully made, as it says in the Bible, right? And when we hone into that and we own that our bodies can deliver us from a lot of the things that we infiltrate in our minds. So we fail sometimes to understand that the illnesses and the sicknesses is self-inflicted.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't and it doesn't mean that we have to go out there and, do, have substance abuse. It doesn't mean you have to drink every day. It doesn't necessarily have to do with a specific action that you've taken. Your mind is such a powerhouse, and we've talked about the mind in these last episodes too. Your mind is such a powerhouse that you can physically make yourself ill just by the way you think. And you never took a needle to the flesh. You never drank a day in your life, never smoked a cig. I mean, let's be real. You don't have to do all of those things. And your mind has the capacity to really shape how you show up on the outside, right? Or even in the inside. You might be battling stuff that's inside. But I think that my biggest asset in holistic well-being and learning it throughout this is feeding my mind things that I wanted to show up in my body. And whether that meant more knowledge, whether that meant a better understanding, whether that meant communicating better, it shows up in your body. Now, don't get me wrong. There are outside and external factors that can harm you and make you sick and make you ill, right? There's the common cold, there's the fever, there's things that we just have no control over. But the one thing that we do have control over is our mindset. If we take the measures that are necessary to feed it the right things. And so to answer what holistic well-being means to you is it starts in your mind and in your heart and what you speak out of your mouth. And a lot of times we don't realize how much we curse ourselves just by saying the wrong thing. Don't tell yourself you're going to fail that test, because guess what's going to happen? You're going to fail that test. Don't tell yourself, oh, he's just like his father, because guess what? He's going to be just like his daddy. You curse yourself by what you say. And so to tie everything up, because I know I'm taking time, but holistic well-being for me meant I got to get my mind right. And guys, it's been 2 years since we've been doing this podcast, and I'm still getting my mind right. I still sometimes want to scurry back into the old ways. I still want to oh man, I can tell you 3, 4, 5 events right now that is happening right now that I wanted to crawl under a rock and just die. But at the same time, it's moments like this, community building like this, that makes me think, there is a way out. And there's a brighter side to this. And so that's what I've taken on. And I think providing myself with the resources and giving myself the opportunities to tap into segments like this, to tap into people broken people. I love me some broken people because I can relate to them, right? So listening to their success stories and their Cinderella stories, we just talked about you're not the only one, but yet you're also not the only one that can make a broken out of a masterpiece. You're not the only one that could turn it around either.
Right.
So if we tapped into that, you're not the only one. You're not the only one that's going through financial problems. Yeah, but you're not the only one that can also take yourself out of financial problems. So switch the narrative and start thinking about your mind and how that is affecting how it's coming out in the outward.
Yes, that is true. Sometimes we are our own enemies because of we let mind control. We let things control our minds. We let idle things control our minds. We let people control our minds. We do things that, holistically, that's not right in our minds. We tell ourselves things that we shouldn't tell ourselves. They're upset with us. Mind games. It's a mind thing. It is really a mind thing. It's a mindset. It's how you set your mind. What are you doing to really realistically say that you can trust yourself, influence yourself? Stop trying to control the narrative all the time. Sometimes in our bodies we get sick because, and things happen, is because of the things we do, the stressful things, the unforgiveness. I keep saying that because of the bitterness, the anger, the abuse. Those are things that our body goes through, and then it makes us sick in our body because of the things we go through. And our spirit man will be all right if we just trust the process.
Right.
Yes.
If we cannot trust the process, then what can we trust? Just being honest. And we have to lean on each other as one, literally, as one unit. If we cannot lean on one another, even in this podcast, you got to lean on us as well as, sometimes y'all might have something that we may need also. So that's what it is. You got to learn to lean on each other when you're not strong.
Yes. That's awesome. And I just want to take a moment to say, those of you who are listening out there, if you know someone who is in need of this conversation, please tag, share, and invite them to this podcast. It is definitely information and sound information, sound knowledge, sound advice, and also experience that we're not just talking about things that we haven't been through. We're talking about things that we have been through and things that other people are going through today. And so, again, in that last question of holistic well-being, what it means to me and how have I helped my daily is a couple of things. Holistic well-being, what it means to me is truly having balance. Truly keeping balance within my mind, within my body, and in my soul. So physically, spiritually, and emotionally. That's what holistic well-being means to me. And the way I keep those things now, as opposed to how I did it before, is that I don't read into anything that someone is saying to me. I check myself to make sure, is this something that they really said to me, or is it something that I have inside of me that I need to deal with that has not truly manifested itself in such a long time that it's been buried. And so, in a practical manner, that is perspective of what someone else is saying to me. People pleasing, there is a difference. Let's be honest, let's be real. We all want to feel an accomplishment, and we all love it when someone gives us a compliment. And when someone gives us, you're doing a great job, a handshake, a pat on the back, whatever that compliment may be. We all love that. And we strive for that. So that is, in a sense, a form of wanting that people pleasing. Where we get in the true people pleasing mentality, hear me because this is very important, is when we start to think about how to do things because of the gratification that we will receive, instead of staying true to who we are and our integrity, and recognizing that I am taking all of that into consideration, but this is where I'm going to keep this, because this is who I am, and my integrity, my morals, my values. I will not compromise to people please or to get numbers or to have someone to tell me I'm doing a good job, when now inside I know that I have compromised my own integrity. And hi, and welcome back to Empowered Voices. We are currently discussing our season 1 episodes, and we took a short intermission, and now we are back on for our next part, which was talking about gentleness and faith. Mm-hmm. We initially talked about the personal foundation and the power of pause. Then we stepped into our holistic approach and how that has helped us. And now we are discussing gentleness and power and faith. And I believe that our episode prior to was gentleness as power, to be more specific, and faith. And so we just wanted to pose this question: how do your values and beliefs shape your approach to challenges and using the gentleness and faith?
Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to get into a big old thing, but we have to start with what power initially means to people, right? And I think our definition of power is very one size fits all sometimes, and that kind of that messes with us. Power is typically associated with money, with leadership. It's specifically associated with things that, if you really think about it and you actually dive into your work, has nothing to do with what true power is. So when we're talking about, values and beliefs and my approach to challenges, the first thing I had to do was, define what my values and beliefs were. Because a lot of us coming off the womb, coming out of family, coming out of traditions, we can think of values and beliefs. Oh, we don't do that around here, or like, that's not how I was brought up. I was brought up like this. You get a lot of that pushback because, that's where our foundation has always been. Now, when I stepped out as a mother, when I removed myself from my family, not in a negative way, but just out, physically remove myself by moving across the country. I realized that, what do I stand on? And I realized that a lot of that still hadn't been figured out. So I think the biggest thing is, especially if you're stepping into adulthood or whatever phase you are in your life, is really going back to the basics and saying, okay, what are my values? What are my beliefs? So what is it about me that, that I need to stand on? And then we just cut off of talking about people pleasing. Well, that's the exact opposite of your values and beliefs, because it's all shaped on everybody else's perspective and not your own. So when I got into my work, like when I got into faith and I started to really take that serious, my relationship with God, I said to myself, or the biggest thing I'm still working on, even I would say most of the time, is my identity. What's my identity in Christ? And what does that look like? And what was his identity? Do I want to mirror that in some way or facet? But challenges come. And challenges kind of, it's almost like an oxymoron, but they, challenges actually like make it, I like to put it like this. You're like on the intersection between going back to what you know and going in the direction that you're heading. And so because, and Pastor Sarah Jakes talked about that before, like foreign and familiar. So challenges have a way of bringing up your past and bringing up your experiences. And then you kind of want to go in the direction of what you once did or once knew, and that seems simple, and that seems easy, and that seems like a no-brainer, right? That's when you start saying, "Oh, I wish somebody would," and all that stuff, you know. But then, how do you develop after realizing what your values and your beliefs are? How do you now respond to challenges in the way that you're going and the way that you want to be, as opposed to the way you were? And my thing is, I always ask myself, is this going to move me forward? Is this going to push me back? It's as simple as, am I, based on my response, am I going back to who I was, or am I going towards what I want to be? And that alone kind of helps people, will help people navigate to where they should be heading, as opposed to where they were once heading. And so don't get me wrong, it's not easy. This whole process is not easy, because foreign is very safe for a lot of people. I mean, familiar is very safe for a lot of people. And that's what they kind of leaned into, that. Like, don't fix what's not broke. So I'm going to do it the way that I've been doing it, and this is how it's always going to be. But that is not what we are designed to do. Us as humans are designed to evolve. Everything has evolved, right? But the one thing that doesn't shake is the foundation. So for me, it was about finding my foundation first. Again, finding my identity, finding what values and beliefs I stand on, and what I will and will not tolerate, my non-negotiables, and working out my differences based on that level, and not the level that I came out of initially.
You know, mine is honestly trust my beliefs and honor my values. You know, sometimes we don't trust our beliefs and what we believe in. We got to learn to really approach the challenges that we have to endure. Sometimes the challenges that we endure, we don't want to endure because we're not ready for them. And some of the challenges that we endure, we don't endure them the way we should, because we thought we was ready for them. You know, we have to understand that the belief that we have is the faith that answers the why beneath the what. You know, we really have to understand that, what it means to us. What does faith really mean to us, and why does it mean that to us? You know, we got to learn to really use influence and not intimidation, with being gentle and faithful. You know, that's something that we have to really trust the process in. As I said again, you know, we have to speak the truth in kindness, gentleness, truth, and allow others to feel it also.
Yes, that's really good. And what I'd like to elaborate a little bit on gentleness because gentleness has power, and having your true beliefs and your values as a foundation versus just knowing them and not standing on them. And so a lot of times when we are in that crossroad of familiar versus unfamiliar, we tend to want to go to the familiar, recognizing that the unfamiliar is where we really need to be. And so when you were talking resistance versus resilience came to my mind, recognizing that resistance, because we as human beings don't like to be uncomfortable. Resilience in retrospect is resisting going back to being comfortable and being resilient enough to move forward. And I have, when as I was reflecting on those things, I realized that each time I went to a new level in my life or a new season in my life, it was recognizing that I had to resist the familiar so that I could continue the being resilient in my faith. And what I'd like to add to what Twanda was saying is gentleness. Gentleness, a lot of times, we specifically spoke about gentleness as power. And a lot of times, power is silent. You are not the loudest person in the room. You are very gentle and you understand what other people are going through, and you're able to give that empathy, but yet your presence is what actually exhibits the power because of the silence that you have. And so that can be very difficult at times when you are, and again, a lot of times we don't even realize we're people when we try to people please, right? Or when we are trying to get a point across, as you know, we sometimes will go back to our old ways of how we used to do things. And recognizing that when you were, power is definitely not what we think. It's not about money. It's not about riches. It's not about fame. Because how many people do we know that were rich and famous yet not happy? And so the power truly comes from within yourself and knowing who you are as you start to reflect on identity. So I just wanted to just kind of bring that out because identity is real.
Yeah.
And understanding who you are. And so our last couple of conversations that we had here in this season, one was the ripple effect. And
It's a good one.
And what ripple effects have you noticed from others' growth around you? One question. And the other question, just tying these all together, can you share an example of how your personal growth has positively impacted your family team, and or community? I think those two questions kind of go hand in hand because the growth that you have around you, then it's like a domino effect, and it actually uh, triggers something inside of you, which then causes positive outcomes.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I'll start with the example of my personal growth. It wasn't until like I got into the face of my past, and by past that could mean a various amount of things, right? But it wasn't until I got face to face with my past and my old traditions and all these things that I really that I realized I'm like, okay, wait a minute. The way you think, the way you move, the way you respond, the way you kind of um, help others think, right? Where you ask questions, because it all is derivative off of an understanding, right? I think we miss, a lot of us, we just miss it with people most of the time because we're not patient enough to understand. And asking questions truly helps. Like, wait, how does that work in your mind? Where did you get that from? You know, why do you feel like you feel that way? And I kind of felt like I turned into a therapist with a lot of people, right? Because I've been to therapy. These are the questions they ask me, and I'm just like, I get these aha moments. And so I want to share that with people because a lot of us step into things and we don't really even know we're stepping into them, or we don't even know we're acting a certain way, or we don't even know that we're maneuvering a certain way, was because we just so on autopilot. So my advice to anyone that is even curious about growth is to kill autopilot. By any means necessary, kill autopilot. Autopilot will have you running around in the same circle for 10 and a half years, and you wouldn't even know where your life is. But I'll tell you what has changed. Your knees, they tight. Your back hurts. I'll tell you what has changed. Your body has changed, but you're still in the same place. And I think autopilot kills that for us. It kills dreamers. And so if you are interested in becoming this better version of yourself, the example that I have is to kill autopilot and really gain a better perspective and an understanding. And I'll tell you how that turned out in my favor. So I was talking to someone who is a part of my path, and I started asking questions. Yeah, but is it really like that? Tell me why it's like that for you. And then it became about, now they're doing the self-reflecting, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, maybe that's not the way. Yeah, maybe we could approach it like this. Do you think that'll help you? You think that will give you the outcome you're looking for? You know, and just asking, and that these are all questions. I'm not telling you got to do this. I'm not telling you got to go for yoga 5 times a day. I'm not telling you got to eat healthy. I'm not telling you to cut that man off. I'm not telling you nothing. I'm simply asking questions. One of the biggest books we ever read in Empowered Voices was How to Start a Conversation, right? And that book, when it's like the person in control of the room is the one asking questions. And I struggle with control. I'm not going to lie about it, right? But at the same time, I realized that it's not a form of control where I'm right about everything. I think there's a difference. There's a different type of control. It's more so I have a better understanding, and not so much my point is more valid than the next person's point. I'm not competing, and I'm not comparing. What I'm trying to do is figure out why this idea and this idea is not commingling. And I'm trying to figure out why I think like this and you think like that. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I care about it that much, right? And that's how, and it had a positive impact, especially in my family, you know, my community, my friends, the people I talk to. And it's such a good thing because a lot of my friends are in Florida, and so I don't talk to them often. But when we do circle back, I see the growth in them too. And I thank God because we didn't have to have that conversation. It wasn't something I did, it was something that they did. And so just to know that they're even seeking to be better is just an amazing thing. You know, and it helped me realize too, this is a conversation between you and God. It has nothing to do with anybody else or any other factors. This is literally between you, your purpose, and God. And that is it. And so that's why it's so hard for me to answer the next question, which ripple effects have you noticed from others' growth around you? My friend specifically, you know, talking to her, I had to stop and say, man, I'm so proud of you. You're really killing it. And you're just killing it in your mindset. You're not running around circles and doing all this stuff. You're going to get there. You're going to get there because now you're trying to really fix what's internal, right? And so that, but I have a hard time thinking about it because I've been so focused on just trying to, and maybe this is the wrong word, but trying to perfect, and not even just perfect, but to work on myself so that I don't fold anytime something comes at me, and I can stay firm in myself, right? Because that's my own personal testimony, my struggle within myself. So I've been so focused on that. Sometimes I miss it. Sometimes I miss when something big is happening for somebody else, and I feel bad because I don't want to miss it intentionally. I just know that there's still so much work that I'm doing. So I'm trying to just be more cognizant about others because you don't know what you're going to unlock through somebody else's goals or somebody else's success within yourself. So that's what I have on Ripple.
The ripple effect, you know, sometimes, you know, it shows awareness. Just being honest, it shows, you know, how are you shaping your normals. You know, what creations are you doing? You know, that's what it means to other people. Just like I talked to a friend yesterday, and she was telling me how inspired she was, how inspiring her actions was, what she had did for the last year, how she was modeling the courage that she was showing, how she was naming the truth. You know, she had to name some truths to some people.
Right.
You know, that's something that really is a ripple effect for a lot of people. It makes us grow, and it makes us what was once unsaleable, it becomes discussable. You know, things like that. Just being honest. You know, a person has to speak clearly in order to know that they're being heard. That the ripple effect is being heard of what they're saying and how they're saying and what they're doing. Got to be organized. That's about all I have to say about it.
I think that that's well put and more than enough to say what the ripple effect has. And this conversation is so good that we are actually running out of time for today. However, what I would like for us to do in preparing for the next season is ask ourselves, looking back on this season, right? What moment or insight stands out the most to us? And what intentions or hopes do you have in your next chapter to your personal journey and what that looks like? Again, if you are listening to this conversation and this conversation is hitting you in a different way than any other conversation has hit you before, please like, subscribe, and invite someone to this podcast. And also, we would love to hear the comments, that what you have to say, your questions that you have for us. And we love to hear from you, period. So we want to thank you for a very successful first season, and coming back from our pause and understanding that a pause may be necessary. Pausing does not mean that you're quitting. it just means that you're regrouping and you're reconnecting with what's inside of you. So until next time, we here at Empower Voices say we love you, we thank you, and most of all, continue to use your voice to inspire others.
He's in charge forever.